Okay, 40 degrees, 38 degrees.
When astronauts first went to the moon, they found a world without life. It's a world far different from the Earth, which is filled with living things. What do we mean by life? How can you decide if something is alive or if it is not alive? Most of the time, you wouldn't have any trouble telling living and non-living things apart. But you might have trouble with this. The patches of color on these rocks look like paint, but they are really very simple living things called lichen. You might also be puzzled by this coral. Coral is found in the ocean and looks like a rock. But what clues do you see that tell you that coral is alive? You can see that it's not always easy to tell whether something is living or not. If you want to be sure, you need to know what living things do that non-living things do not do. Let's start by looking at what living things are made of. A pond is full of living things. Some of them are too small to see. Let's collect a sample of pond water and look at a drop through a microscope. A microscope makes it possible to see very small things. Every drop of pond water contains many living things. Most of them are made of only one cell. Cells are the building blocks of living things. Plants we can see are made of many cells together. And animals we can see are made of many cells together. In fact, all living things are made of cells, whether they're as big as an elephant or so small that hundreds can live in a drop of water. Non-living things don't have cells. This is a very thin slice of rock we are going to look at under the microscope. The rock is not made of cells. But some non-living things are made of cells. Once this piece of wood was part of a living tree, but now it is dead. If you were to take a small slice of the wood and look at it under a microscope, you'd see that it has cells, even though it is now a non-living thing. So being alive means more than just having cells. It also means making new living things. All new living things come from other living things, just as you came from your parents. This is called reproduction. Animals reproduce. They make new living things. Plants reproduce. On this orange tree, there are oranges that have seeds. When a ripe orange falls to the ground, a new tree may grow from a seed that was in the orange. Do non-living things reproduce? What else do living things do that non-living things don't do? Cells like this one split in two, making more and more cells. And as living things grow, they make special parts. For example, as these bean sprouts grow, some of their cells become roots, other cells become the stem, and others become leaves. What about growth in non-living things, like this crystal? Watch what happens to it when we put it in a special liquid for a day. The crystal grows. But is it growing special parts the way the plant did? No, it isn't, because the crystal is not a living thing. Even though it can grow, What happens to living things when they get hurt? Living things can repair themselves. Can non-living things repair themselves when they're damaged? Here is something else most living things do. Most living things move. With special cameras, we can see how green plants move as they grow. Some living things can move from one place to another. Also, there is movement inside their bodies. For instance, the movement you see here is caused by blood flowing through an arm. Clouds move, too. So does water. And so do bicycles. But are they alive? What made the bicycles move? In order to move, grow, repair themselves, and reproduce, living things need food. All living things depend on the sun's energy for food. Green plants use the energy of sunlight to change water and carbon dioxide from the air into their food. All other living things get their food from plants or from animals that eat plants. Food gives living things energy. To turn food into energy, most living things must have oxygen. We can't see oxygen, but it's in the air we breathe. The harder we work, the more energy we use. The more energy we use, the more oxygen we need. Some non-living things use oxygen too. The candle burns with the help of oxygen in the air. As soon as all the oxygen under the cover is used up, the flame goes out. The candle is a non-living thing that needs oxygen to burn. But does the candle do anything else that living things do? Living things also can tell when there are changes in the world around them. And they can do something about these changes. What they do is called a response. Some responses seem very simple, like your response when you step on a sharp object.
Ouch!
This plant responds when it's touched. Other responses are not simple. They're very complicated. In human beings, responses often involve what we call thinking.
Hey!
Living things often can respond to the same situation in many different ways. Sometimes it seems as though non-living things also have responses. Throw a rock in a pond, and the water responds with ripples. But can the water respond to the rock in any other way? You've seen that non-living things sometimes act like living things. Some can grow, some use oxygen, some move. But only living things have cells, reproduce, and grow. Only living things move on their own, repair themselves, use food to keep going, and respond to the world around them. There is one other thing living things do. They die. Dead things, like this tree, slowly break down into smaller and smaller pieces. After a while, the dead tree becomes part of the soil. Later, the same bits of soil may be used by a new tree. So living and non-living things form a circle in which living things die and non-living things can become part of living things. Sometimes it's not clear what is living and what is not. We can show you what we mean with this electron microscope, which is used to see things too small to be seen by an ordinary microscope, like these viruses. By themselves, viruses don't use food, don't move, and don't reproduce. In other words, they seem to be non-living. But when viruses meet up with the right kind of cell, the viruses move into the cell and reproduce. Then they often cause diseases like colds and flus. Viruses are on the borderline between living and non-living things. Our world is filled with many forms of life. And what about other worlds? Is there life in other places in the universe? We are searching for the answer with the help of spacecraft and with our knowledge of the differences between living and non-living things.